Thank you guys for sticking around, spending some time with me. Listen, let's kick this off with a little game. You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna call this Buzzword Bingo, the digital edition, right? So if there was a word or a catchphrase that you never wanna hear again in your roles, what would it be and why?
Well, with the start of COVID, there's a couple that popped to mind. It's usually this, I
I'm
was
on mute.
muted. Yeah. That's
Wow,
That's a good one.
That is a really
That's a good one. I like that one.
and even now 2 years later, every meeting, there's still two or three.
There's still that person. Okay, that person's usually me, so I'm not gonna lie about that. But yeah, totally.
Along the same lines, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
That's one. That's
yeah.
one that
But you would think that we'd be able to get there, right? Which I think is kind of what leads me to what I want to talk to you both about. You have both spearheaded some pretty big, I don't want to call them digital initiatives because that's kind of makes it feel small. Because at the end of the day, having heard both of your stories, this is really about change initiatives. And yes, there was a lot of digital there. There's a lot of digital transformation that was there. But you guys have really facilitated change within both of your organizations. What are some of the biggest lessons you have learned about what is kind of, it might be the first phase, it might be the 90th phase, it might be the third phase repeated 4 times, but kind of in your most recent projects and initiatives, is there anything that jumps out as a really great lesson learned that you would want to share with peers?
recently, just given like the economic climate and kind of constraints that are on like all of us, we've been trying to kind of collaborate and get those quick wins. Roll out those MVPs and then take it from there, especially when it comes to some of our digital initiatives. Can we get together, put something together quickly, productionalize it, and see if it works? And then if it works, we'll take it from there. And we've had a lot of success with taking that approach.
I like it.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a very good point. I was going to mention that we've been doing a bunch of changes in the look and feel across 3M and 3M.com. And again, we use Jira to do all of our tickets, and the MVP approach is very, very good to start. So start real small, make a small change, roll it out, see it. Then you get the feedback quickly from the clients and see if, nope, that wasn't quite what we were looking for. We wanted it X, Y, Z. Whereas previous to that, we would do the big bang approach, and you make 3 months of work and then push it out there, and no one's happy.
No one's happy.
Right.
But have you found that helps make your partners across the organization more willing to collaborate on those types of projects? Because it feels like you're able to be more creative, come up with new ideas, suggest new paths without being punished all the time, right? Because in that 3-month big bang, if it doesn't go right, there's punishment, like recrimination, that comes somewhere down that pipe. So are you finding that your stakeholders are actually also enjoying kind of being part of that faster iteration cycle where everyone gets to be part of that?
You get feedback much quicker, and that's both good and bad.
For everyone in digital, everyone at home is like,
And you can make changes and tweak things much faster and just be, you were talking about phrases that I don't want to hear anymore. But actually, like you're going to be more like being able to be more agile and like make pivots when you see something's working, something's not working. That's really important, like where we are right now. So we've been doing a lot of that. Yeah.
I love that. But have you found that you're also working with a bit of a different team, not the teams that you kind of oversee or the teams that directly report into you, but are you finding that there are different stakeholders across the enterprise that are wanting to have deeper partnerships aside from what appears on a page or kind of where something goes? Is that kind of DX team maybe shaking up a little bit across your organizations?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. We have, traditionally it was always the core marketing team that were driving the changes. And I think as more people across all the industries are getting more and more technical, more familiar with technology just in general, more of what I used to just call the end user are now making these bigger driving changes. They're seeing value in something, some other platform, some other use case, and they're like, we should do this, and then that starts boiling up, and we start working on an initiative around some other feature.
Making those changes. Right. I love it. But you did something, because we had a chance to talk about this a little bit, where you're using this to bridge gaps across kind of that CX landscape of like, hey, service, what are we doing there?
Yeah, so we've had, I've been lucky having worked with a lot of like collaborative, open-minded groups in our bank. And one of the more recent initiatives that we worked on was an integration with our IVR. So what we did was integrate Unica Interact with our IVR system. And what enabled us to do originally was to provision sales-based messages in the IVR after the customer basically authenticated. And then we kind of sat at the table and we're like, what else is there that we could do?
Yeah.
Is there anything service related that we could try out, pilot, see if it works? Would it have any impact on call volumes, on how quickly our call center agents can service customers? And we came up with the idea of basically getting a data feed of declined credit card transactions into Interact. And then if a customer were to call the IVR, we would know that maybe they recently had a declined credit card transaction at a merchant, in a store, online, wherever that may be. And we could ask the customer, through an automated voice message after they authenticate, is this the reason for your call? And then if they were to say yes, then we are able to equip our call center agent with information about that decline, what the amount was, where it happened, just to make that conversation smoother and kind of have a seamless interaction between the customer and the agent, and have their problem taken care of much faster than we would have otherwise or previous to that integration.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. And it just brings all of what that customer is feeling in that moment, right? That's what we're always trying to do with digital, right? Is we want to, first understand what the customer is experiencing and then try to meet them in that moment of need. But when what you do is like, here, please try to go navigate these 100 different streams. Yeah. It's kind of hard to see past the project that you're working on. So I love hearing that. That's awesome. Anything that you've learned that you learn from, I'm going to call it a bump in the road, right? Because listen, we're all in digital. It's like potholes in the road. Like, let's be honest, right? It's that, you always hit something. Anything that you guys found where you're like, ooh, that tends to be that roadblock, that challenge. And have you learned anything in kind of how you get around through as you've been navigating all of this digital change, let's say, over the past couple of years?
For me, the big one is, things change really quickly, especially like post-COVID. Or even during COVID. So just not to get dismayed when, situations change. If a project doesn't go the way it should, just be able to kind of either like power through, get it to end the job, or find alternatives and move on to whatever's, the next best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been kind of like to stick it out and to just keep going and not get dismayed when you hit bumps in the road.
Don't take it personally. Don't get too emotional over it, which is hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've put blood, sweat, and tears into this, so
a lot of times you're like, oh, well, this project's like, this is my baby and I need to kind of like take care of it, make sure it's a success. But sometimes there's factors outside of your control that you just have to accept.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So some of our biggest challenges is every country has different core requirements. Some of the unique ones are like in Taiwan, they like animated GIFs on their corporate website.
Who doesn't? I mean, who doesn't love a cute cat?
Right.
That's like, I love,
and some of those clash with, the requirements from the corporate standards, and then trying to get everyone to agree on that. And that's where things have started to become more easy or easier, is getting those country requirements up to the corporate level and make some changes so that can be done. And then with the HCL portal product, making that work so it's easy to do between those two countries and still keep those countries in sync for other content.
Have you found that with things like those cloud native, robust, composable architectures. Like you have that foundation now. You're not, as a country's tastes or as a consumer's behavior starts to change. It's not like you're saying, okay, well, let's wait for another 3 years until we can rebuild an entire thing here.
Right.
It allows for that flexibility. It allows for, I think when we think about scale, we tend to think about how many more people can we invite to the table as opposed to how many more pieces, how many more countries, how much more expansion.
Right.
Have you found that that's made it easier for you?
Having a solid framework does help with that. We are able to create a single template that then can be reused across many different countries, and that speeds deployment quite a bit.
And are you also then finding that it allows teams to feel like they can create anywhere? Because I think a lot of times, especially when you have global teams, you have teams that may be in country, in region, they want to be creating, but they're creating over here in this little bucket, right? And then you have your US team and they're creating over here in this little bucket. Have you found, are you streamlining that? Are you able to kind of allow that creativity to come from anywhere?
Yes, so we have a few large regions across the world, and each one has their own design agencies or their design partners inside of the company that help create their design and push it to the countries and the businesses inside of that region. So then they can be more compartmentalized and but still have the same corporate vision.
Yeah. It's like that, the capacity to focus, but still be part of that big brand experience,
Right.
which is awesome.
For us, it's a bit easier because most of our operations are, in Canada and the U.S. But
It still makes it hard. I mean,
is,
Canada,
yeah.
certainly
Even,
Canada is not a
cross-state,
homogenous
yes,
market. That's
true.
huge.
But just talking about kind of like some of our digital capabilities, there's always lessons learned where we do something in Canada first, and then we try to kind of take that expertise or those lessons learned and then apply it to, if we just updated our mobile app or our online banking in Canada, and it's always, or we just did it in the US. Like, what did we learn? What could we do differently? And then you bring that expertise and kind of that knowledge and those lessons learned over to, cross-border and apply those. And it makes a big difference.
I love that because it is that mindset of looking at each of these points of digital interaction as a product that has a life cycle to it. I think that old school thinking is, I have a website, it's done, it's launched.
Yeah.
But this new digital mindset is very much as if you've developed a product. You're going to take that same life cycle approach, those lessons, that iterative behavior, as you would be releasing a phone, as you're releasing the app, right? You're looking at it same as that digital product, which I think is...
Or even just a campaign.
Right. Yeah. Everything is that kind of iteration and it can move, which is awesome.
And something might work in the Canadian market and not work in the U.S. market. So
something could work in California and not work in Arizona. I mean, it's. I think you need to have that flexibility to be able to address it quickly.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you were really looking forward to? Like, is there anything that you're looking down, like, let's say the next 12 to 18 months, anything that you guys are working on that you're like, yes, I can't wait to tackle that? Or you're like, oh gosh, I have to tackle it. Either one is fine.
So we just recently finished migrating all of our data centers into the cloud. So that was a two-year effort.
That's a little thing that you guys just decided to do.
And so that all wrapped up this last fall.
Wow.
And that was a large initiative, and it was just good to get that done and completed and everything checked off and working. So moving forward from that, I mean, there's a few other small things.
But doesn't that kind of open the door for you guys? Like, now that you're in the cloud, you're like, okay, it opens a world of possibility of different places you could go now.
Right.
That's awesome.
Being in the cloud then helps with auto scaling, shutting down servers, all those cost management things that are hard to do when you're not. So.
Yeah. A lot more connections though that people are going to expect, right? Because of that flexibility. So it opens up a lot of opportunities, but it also opens a whole new bucket of complexity, right?
Slightly kind of different topic and context, but my area of focus is strategy on the inbound marketing front.
Nice.
So we've integrated Interact with basically every major inbound channel at the bank. So branch, call center, ATM fleet, online banking, our mobile app, IVR, as I mentioned. So now that we've kind of taken care of the full scope of our major inbound channels, we're looking for opportunities where we could capitalize on those inbound interactions from an outbound marketing perspective. So a customer did something at the ATM, or they went to a branch and they spoke to someone about something. Is there a follow-up outbound communication that we could send them that's helpful to them? But but it's also an opportunity for us to capitalize on just that interaction they just had.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have time to speak to somebody at that moment in time when they walk into a branch, or make a decision about a mortgage renewal at the ATM. But it's up to us to inform them that, hey, your mortgage is coming up for renewal. Here's some additional information that might be helpful to you. And let's say trigger an email in real time.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're kind of super excited about
That's
and
awesome.
working on. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. What are some of the things, so let's tackle some of the kind of the big buzzy, everyone's excited about talking about it, right? Where is AI coming in to what you are both looking at? And I take that from both the how is AI going to impact how your teams and how kind of the users across your business are going to be, maybe getting a new experience, and then how is that then, impacting how your customers are looking at it? So where does AI fit on the landscape for you guys?
Well, I'm not quite sure if it's fully AI or not, but it's more user tracking and product recommendations.
On the ML side, yeah.
Right.
Love
So analyzing all their previous interactions and maybe other previous interactions of this type to drive what the future clicks could be. So like if someone comes in and they start viewing industrial tape, we can go, hey, we have these other applications. We have car adhesives. We have other things that, based on your other previous history, we see that you've navigated, to look at Bondo.
Yeah.
So because of that, then we can now recommend this automotive painting tape. Because now
so
you're looking at
meaningful
adhesives.
personalization. AI is kind of leading you down that path of.
Right.
So I think when a lot of times when people hear personalization, which sometimes I want my buzzword bingo ban to be personalization, I just don't want to hear it, because from the time we've been trying to put a name on an envelope, we've been talking about it, right? But what you're talking about is really meaningful, contextual personalization.
Right.
Like you've now looked at Bondo 7 times.
Right.
Let's show you a couple other things, right? In that regard. So when you start to go down that path, are you then also looking at, okay, well, this is how we want to execute it. Now we need to start looking at, are there new data sources that we need to bring into this? Are there new connection points that we need? Do I need to be bringing in customer service? Do I need to bring in retailer data and point of sale data? How does that start to expand your kind of wish list of what feeds the AI? The never ending.
Yes, right. That's the never ending question. Is you never seem to have enough data. Every time you start creating a new data feed, it's like, well, in addition to point of sale data at a retail store, we need the point of sale data inside of our distributors to know what they're buying in order to sell to those other customers. And then it just becomes, how do you wade through all that data before you find the next data channel you need?
Right. Excellent. So where's AI coming in for you?
So we do a lot of what you just mentioned as well, but in addition to that, kind of dabbling in A/B testing, and from a content perspective, are we able to personalize the content that the customer sees? Where you would see something, or when it comes to the creative or the images and the content that we use, that you would see something different compared to me, and then learn on that.
Yeah.
And then if somebody else logs in that fits the profile that you have, can we personalize the content so that fits and that we know would have more success for this particular segment that we're trying to target? We've been doing a lot of that lately. that's one thing. And then from a data perspective, we're trying to look at transactional data. Is there something there that we could learn on, and then feed our decisioning capabilities? Just both inbound and outbound. There's that as well. And I think that's what comes to mind right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there kind of a skill that in each of your roles you have found kind of, maybe not a technical skill, but like something that you now realize is like that indispensable skill that if you were to recommend, hey, peers, immediately go out and think about this. Anything come to mind?
For my use case is SEO. Any knowledge of SEO, all the little things that you might not think are important.
Yeah.
The text, whether it's uppercase, mixed case, or lowercase, and in the URL matters to some search engines over others. And just the little things that you do at that level can have very big effects on, how many customers get to your sites or your products or see the things you want them to see. And it used to be that you only had, a few experts that would then try and talk to you beforehand or after you launch. But everything you can do as you're building now to help drive higher search engine placement helps in my industry quite a bit.
Yeah, love it.
Just being able to analyze data. It sounds simple, but just looking at data and being able to interpret it, because a lot of what we do in marketing, there's analytics involved, and you want to know what am I looking at when I look at these numbers? Am I interpreting them correctly? And there's a lot of decisions that are made based on kind of the analysis that we do. So being able to look at the data and say, I actually know what this means. Click-throughs for this campaign should be interpreted differently compared to that, because this particular offer shows up, in this placement, which gets a lot more visibility. So there's all that sort of stuff that's important. And again, from a marketing perspective, having an open mind. I know it might not necessarily be a skill, but
I think it is.
Yeah.
No, I'll be honest with you, it totally is.
Because it's very easy to sit at the table and just say, no, we're not going to try that. That's not going to work. But just having that flexibility to kind of be open to other people's ideas and collaborate with them, that's a big asset.
Yeah. So do you think that it's the ability to analyze data, or do you think that it's also a little bit the capacity to interrogate data differently, right? Because I think a lot of people will look at that, like, let's be honest, when they come out with like the marketing dashboard, it's all the things that we made up 15 years ago and then convinced everyone was really important. And it takes that marketer to be able to go in there and be like, actually, I'm going to look at this differently and I'm going to tie it to sales. Right. And so that ability to kind of ask a different question.
Put a different lens on it.
Yeah. And kind of understand what the business need is, what that impact need is, what's the business driving for. It's kind of a different mindset than, the good old days of like, here is my spreadsheet of how many clicks I got. Like those days are kind of gone. Right. And we're having to interrogate that engagement data very differently. But I always find that it takes someone who's willing to ask a different question that might have everyone around the table thinking, that's not what marketers do. You need that first person who's going to ask that crazy question, and that can be hard.
Yeah. Especially at a place like a bank.
They're super flexible. Come on.
Yeah. In financial services, because, there's a lot riding on decisions that you make, even from like a marketing perspective. Sometimes people like shy away from having their voices heard, but I think that's something that we need to coach our employees on, our team members, and just give them that confidence to speak up, question things, even if it's numbers. Just even if they're wrong, we'll get to the bottom of this is how it should be interpreted. And this is kind of the way we're looking at it. So yeah, I think that's super important.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, one thing that people kind of keep bringing up, and I'm going to bring it up because I don't think we've had the obligatory AI conversation. We have not had the modern equivalent of the ChatGPT conversation that I think is everyone's requirement recently. But I am going to bring up another required modern digital conversation being, you ready for it?
Uh-oh.
The metaverse. Right, I know, like, I always joke that, like, I need a glitter cannon. Like, metaverse, exciting, oh my God, it's the coolest place. But when you start to think about that, what's next in experience, where it's that shared immersion, everyone's collaborating together. I'm gonna, design my own sticky note that then gets turned into a command strip. Like, I don't know how we extend that out for new products, but when you start to think of this space where your customers, your partners, the whole ecosystem is going to come together in a single digital shared space and have those shared immersive experiences. When you think about that, where do your heads start to go? Like, how have you started maybe strategizing where those fuzzy edges might be, where your organizations might start to kind of have those conversations?
What jumps in my mind is us helping our partners stage products. So using the metaverse to create virtual store aisles where they can throw products in, throw things in different arrangements, how that even works with other products that might not be our products, which why would you buy anything other than our products?
I mean, duh, yeah.
But just to help easily stage the aisle with the products and find out, one, how much does this cost to do, how much products do they need, what sort of visibility they would get in the store, how much traffic, and maybe even have other random metaverse members be the secret shoppers who walk by and see if it catches their eye as they're walking virtually by.
Yeah, I love that. Listen, a digital metaverse-based planogram, I'm taking it. As the person who, like, way back in the day in retail, you'd get that FedEx pack, and you're like, damn, the planogram.
Yeah.
Turn the whole store in 24 hours. No, right? But, that virtual metaverse one, I think it is also showing where points of collaboration can happen with an ecosystem that's a lot larger, right? So it's, yes, I've got a hook, but now what happened to the mirror that goes above it? Like, who's in the decor, and how do we hang that mirror? 3M's got a solution for that.
So one of the cool things that our bank did actually this past year was they started a Twitch channel. Yes.
Really?
So you typically don't associate your bank with having like a Twitch channel,
No.
but yeah, we launched a Twitch channel through our marketing team.
That's awesome.
And it's basically somebody like every week or every couple of weeks we have one of our previous branch employees who is kind of very well versed at Twitch and gaming and all of that, goes online and they're not there to just push banking products and services. They're just playing video games with other people. But there's that aspect of does anybody have any questions about kind of their needs, or for some of the younger people, what does even like a mortgage mean? How do you
start saving at 20?
How do you start saving? Yeah, and to be able to kind of have those conversations in a space where those younger folk might find it more compelling, more interesting. I think that's kind of like a good first step to entering that world, and we've had quite a bit of success with it. So, at first there were some skeptics, but it's done really well so far. Yeah.
That's so cool. I agree, like that, hey, listen, the coolest next step is going to be in that point where it becomes that shared conversation where all the things that all the young people are playing and all that feedback that you get back into the bank then turns into a product that they then get to see. Like, it's that kind of iterative cycle of sharing and collaboration.
There's sometimes like other gamers who are guests of our like Twitch channel. They come, they show up, and they're just playing games, but then having those conversations as well in kind of like a casual way.
There's going to now have to be like a bank game, like that doesn't involve robbery. Like clearly we take that off the table. Yeah. But like there has to be some kind of new like bank branch game that you guys have to go do now.
I'll pitch that.
There you go.
To the
See,
execs,
there we
yeah.
go. It's all Liz's fault. That'll be awesome. You just call it the Liz game. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine.
They'll love it.
Yeah, you don't have to name it after me. You do have to name it
TM.
after me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then we can have 3M products in it. We're going to bring all of this home.
Yeah, we'll
It's going
bring
to
it all
be great.
together. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. Want to talk about dynamics within teams, within the organization, because you come from marketing.
Yep.
You sit in IT.
Yep.
This has long been debated, this dynamic between marketing and IT, right? Marketing's the coloring department, IT's the land of no. I've heard them all, like literally. So share with me a little bit about how you have each within your own individual organizations kind of forged that path. And I would assume it has to be a path that's not only super trusted, super valued, but you are gaining new momentum because of these partnerships, it sounds like. So maybe, first from the marketing perspective, how are you working with IT kind of as a whole? And what are some of the things that you're maybe gaining because of that relationship?
Yeah, I guess just over the years being transparent with each other and providing reasons as to why are we doing this, what impact it's going to have on our IT department, what the expectations are, like just being very clear about timelines, what we're trying to achieve. And then once we deliver on something, we're actually delivering on it together. It's not like it's not a marketing initiative and it's not an IT initiative. At the end of the day, when implementation or an integration is successful, it makes us both look good. So that's kind of the approach we've had. And then over the years, you build that relationship, that trust, that open line of communication, and it kind of feeds on itself.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of our approach, and it's been successful. And then when you come to end the job when it comes to an initiative, and this campaign or even like this integration generated this much in revenue, it's something that IT could take and say, hey, we were a big part of this, right? They
That's
showcase
huge.
it to their
Yeah.
leadership as well, and it makes us both look good. So that's how we've been kind of
I like
managing that relationship.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
It's worked for us. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because it's not often IT is invited to also demonstrate that impact on revenue in such a clear way. How have you seen the dynamic change between the groups? But how are you seeing IT maybe approach things differently? Because IT has a lot of different priorities.
Right. So as was mentioned earlier, the trust and communication is really important. And in the last few years, IT and marketing have worked very closely together. Prior to COVID, we actually had a shared office space just for our digital initiatives between IT and marketing. We sat in the same meetings, worked on the same problems together, did the A/B analysis together, so that we could get all of the data together and figure out, well, how are we going to do this? This is what we want to do. Here's the data that says it. How can we get there, and how can we be successful? So in the end, it's the same company, just two different teams, and getting to the point where we trust each other enough to know that we each have the best interests of the company in mind.
Yeah. But that's also a very different posture that I think maybe was taken even 10 years ago, which was we're going to come up with the plan in marketing, and then we're going to treat IT.
Right.
Yeah, here are the requirements, IT, go buy this for us, right?
Right.
Like where it was almost like ordering from a menu.
Right, and that is the biggest change, is that there isn't the die-hard requirements. We have a goal.
Right.
It's the goal
it's the
that we're trying to
strategy conversation that you're having.
Right, and we'll define the requirements together and how to reach that goal, and we do that through small iterations. And that's the biggest change in the last 10 years that I've seen is approaching it as a goal with MVP model and approach, as opposed to here's our requirements, you make it happen.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And then beat everyone when it doesn't
Right.
happen, right? That never works, right? But I do think that also helps push things out of this idea that everything sits in a silo, because nothing's ever worked. Like, when was the last time that worked? It just doesn't in this digital landscape. So when you start to look into 2023, give me a sense, what do you think high point, low point is going to be? as you start to look at, biggest challenge you think you're going to face in the next year, like greatest peak that you hope the team gets to?
I mean, having to deal with economic uncertainty,
Yeah.
it's gonna impact us in, I'm sure, a different number of ways. So there is that, and then kind of more specific to our company, just acquired a big bank here in the U.S. So having to make that, like, that has to be successful. We have to have a successful acquisition and onboarding of existing
Yeah.
customers, so that and marketing plays a big role in that. So kind of we have to get together and all hands on deck
Yeah.
and make sure that that's a success.
My bet is going to be, this is just my like crystal ball premonition, that all that work that you and your team have put into the kind of the bridge building between customer service and kind of building that trust between the two teams is going to be wildly important as you look at that onboarding, right? Because you're going to want to make sure that the two teams are going in as that solid unit and saying, we've seen all the permutations of challenges that can happen, and together this is what we're going to do. So I think it's like that example of the hard work that you're putting in now, that I think that'll really pay off as you're looking at those acquisition strategies and building trust as a new bank currency, right, is going to be what you have to do with those customers. I love it. What are you seeing?
So our short-term challenge is actually sort of a 180 of that. We are spinning off all of our healthcare businesses into their own company.
Oh, wow.
So that affects every one of our digital properties. Just trying to unweave the content that's specific to the spin-off versus what's going to stay with 3M.com, how permissions work, how it's going to work in the future. So that's the main focus for 2023 is to make sure that healthcare business can be a successful business on day one after the transition.
Yeah, you two we'll have a separate roundtable for commiserating over regulatory demands later. We can do that in a separate convo. But yeah, I mean, making sure that is stood up to be successful is going to be a huge piece. Let's look into not 2023, but let's look at 2024. What is the one thing top of the wish list you really want from all of your digital partners? And it can't be free stuff. Darn it, I know.
No,
we already get a lot of that.
Oh, man. I think just to be 100% cloud compatible. So many digital partners say they're cloud native or cloud compatible, but then that's a little asterisk on the side that, well, except for these cases.
Except for when you squint and turn to the left. Right.
Using it, not the way you use
when
it.
You're
but,
actually using it.
Because that, like I mentioned earlier, the move to the cloud has helped in a number of ways and has a number of unexpected ways to spend or save money. And if every digital partner is cloud aware, cloud native, then it becomes even more easy. It becomes easier. I did that last time too. Mm-hmm. Easier to shut systems down when not needed, spin them up quickly when you do need that data or that feed, and then turn them back off when they're not needed.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think you're very right. I think that getting to that point, though, also requires folks like ourselves, when we're in that buying posture, to ask the harder questions of, like, define what you mean by, are you cloud native? Did you rebuild from the ground up? Like, define composable for me. So, I think that's a great tip for anyone watching of, like, ask those questions of all of your partners and then, make those decisions kind of from that posture of knowing. That's great.
Well, honesty, transparency, and
those easy things.
Yeah, jokes aside, though, compatibility. Like, for us, we use a lot of different tools at our bank for marketing purposes, but it's hard to sometimes connect these tools to each other or make them speak to each other. So that's really important for us, especially now.
Yeah.
In 2023, where kind of, the MarTech stack, our MarTech stack is kind of continuously expanding.
Yeah.
We need to be able to have these different systems speak to each other, or have data go from one system to the other, kind of in a seamless way and be able to have these systems kind of work perfectly in conjunction with each other. So
Yeah.
that's a big one for us.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's funny, I did a survey of a lot of CXOs, and when we asked, when you're looking at all these digital tools, what are the most important attributes of these tools? And we put all the buzzwords in there, right? But then we all put in you know what the number one thing is? Integration.
Yeah.
Right? Does it integrate with what I have? I'm not here to have a rip and replace conversation, right? Does it integrate? And interestingly, for marketers, for CMOs, the number two answer actually was, gets my CIO's seal of approval. That actually ranked higher than even getting my own team seal of approval. It was kind of like, we'll get the team to use it if it works.
Yeah.
But they want to really make sure that the CIO is in lockstep, because if it comes to data, if it comes to automation, if it comes to tools, like the days of just randomly building the Frankenstack, I think are gone, which is a great place to be. So famous last words, right? What is the one thing based on your journey to date that you would want all of your peers to remember about you? Now I ask the big, meaningful questions. I ask the deep dives.
Honestly, we've been really successful on delivering a return on investment and a lot of what we've done. So I think that's really important to remember, and just continuing to have that trust from other stakeholders. That's a big thing for me, and I'm sure for my group, and for the broader group as well.
It's going to be Alley Business Impact.
Yes.
We're just going to give you a new t-shirt. We're going to get it printed. I like it. What's yours?
So mine would be around globalization. So we initially started years ago with just 3M.com. That was our property. And moving across the world, having 3M CEO UK was a huge win for the UK. And we slowly built those up until now we have 200 plus country level site domains. And just by the domain itself, even if you don't change any other content, you get a lot bigger return on investment, because people searching for you will find you that much quicker. And then on top of that, all the other SEO changes to get even more eyes and more clicks and more business is very beneficial at the country level.
It's all part of that personalization strategy you were talking about, right? Globalization has to be part of that. If you're really wanting to engage a global consumer and that global customer, the professional customer, that has to be part of that strategic dialogue. So I love it. Globalization and business impact. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
That's great.